the music industry, does anybody play an instrument? Is anybody a musician? Okay, I ask because I am, but the reason I ask, does anybody watch The Voice? How about that? Does everybody watch The Voice? Does anybody know why the judges' backs are to the person auditioning? Exactly. It's for blind bias. Exactly. And if we build our robots to interview blindly, it's reducing the bias we come in the first 3 seconds of an interview. When HR recruiters are just doing the pre-screening, they're coming to that pre-screening with a bias based on your name, based on what you look like, based on where you may have gone to school. Whereas if we train our artificial intelligence to completely remove that information and completely ignore it and base it solely on the skill set in the resume, we might actually create a more diverse organization. We can also create our artificial intelligence to detect bias, which is pretty insane. So what does that mean? It means we need to build the system to identify where bias might be, what biases exist, so that it can tell us, hey, wait, you're being biased in this particular area. And then, once we've done that, again, predictive analytics will make us more consistent across evaluating employees. So instead of saying, evaluating candidates. So instead of saying, but I thought she looked really cute, who cares? Is she gonna fit the role? It doesn't matter. The consistency of evaluating the candidate is going to be much more even and equitable. And then we can track our diversity metrics. And I'm gonna talk to you about a case study that's done just that. So let's talk about learning and development. What does that mean? How can we create artificial intelligence to make us better at developing and training our employees? Well, what we can do by collecting real live data, like real-time data, we can actually create personalized training programs for each individual human. Instead of a generic training or a generic workshop, we can create a path that's bespoke per person. When we collect data on a day-to-day basis, we can guide people more quickly on changing particular things, on how to enhance their performance in a particular role based on that day, instead of based on what we know performance reviews to be, the last project you just did. And artificial intelligence can break down our training programs into what is called micro-learning. So basically taking it block by block to build upon the entire training program. And what that does is ensure completion of a training program. Because what happens is people either never sign up for a training program, or they start and never finish it. But if we break it down to smaller building blocks over time, and based on the real-time data that we're collecting, people are more inclined to finish that training program. And they're actually growing, they're actually developing. So we can also collect real-time feedback. This is where artificial intelligence can get a little bit tricky, but I'm gonna tell you a secret. Organizations are collecting the data anyway. So what does this mean? What am I talking about? When I talk about real-time employee feedback, artificial intelligence can comb through emails, comb through informal communication programs like Slack or Microsoft Teams or whatever internal system you might have to determine how engaged the employee base is. When I say this is where artificial intelligence gets tricky, this is where you're like, wait a minute, why are people listening to me all the time? Well, I'll tell you a little secret. They're already listening. If you have never seen an ad come through your Instagram feed because you just talked about it and you don't think they're listening, I'm telling you they're listening. So all I'm saying is, as an IO psychologist, we can leverage that information. The reality is, what we need to do as ethical professionals, we need to strip that down to the summaries. We need to let artificial intelligence strip that down to the summary. And I'll go so far as to say it shouldn't even be department-based, because you can still then decipher who is saying what. But I do think it's important that since this data is being collected, let's leverage it. And if we leverage it, we can detect concern and issues in our culture much faster than turning into a Boeing. Mm-hmm. And we can predict how we can change those behaviors. What will our people actually respond to? How can we create retention processes and tools that people will actually respond to? We don't have to wait for plane doors to fly off the hinges mid-flight. When we talk about 360-degree feedback, what happens here is artificial intelligence doesn't need to wait for all these biased employees to send their feedback to their leader based on what you've heard. What artificial intelligence can do is comb through customer feedback, comb through conversations based on projects and emails and deadlines, and provide a robust 360-degree review that's unbiased. We can also predict behavioral analysis, right? It's going to tell us who is responding poorly in the organization, and then how can we respond to that behavior faster before it becomes a wildfire. And we can talk about who could potentially be a leader in the organization. We could create a succession plan that is unbiased by leveraging artificial intelligence. And we can customize our artificial intelligence to say, look for these specific skills. Track this progress and let us know who is going to be the future leaders of the organization. And how wonderful would that be to promote based on performance instead of who I like more? So just to give a recap, artificial intelligence in the recruitment and hiring process is going to improve efficiency, give us better accuracy to filling that role, and provide a fair and equitable hiring process. And it's also going to, like I said, improve efficiency, and I'll talk to you about what that's done for an organization most recently.